Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's review we're going to be taking a look at the newly released Transformers Generation Selects Volcanicus. Finally, Takara Tomy have released this set after teasing it I believe now for at least 6 months, and it has actually been delayed by quite a significant amount. I was really looking forward to this, not only because of the additional accessories and I believe some upgrade pieces, but the paint decos that the actual Dinobots have applied to them really do look fantastic and sets them apart from their original Power of the Primes release. Now I do know there will be many that may actually skip this particular set, as it does appear we are getting more movie accurate representations of the Dinobots in the Studio Series lineup, but I for one have always been a huge fan of the Power of the Prime Dinobots, and to get what well could be the definitive Volcanicus combiner, I just knew that I could not miss this set out. You can see that as far as a box art is concerned, it is very standard for the Generation Select figures. We've of course got Grimlock, Slug, Swoop, Sludge and Snarl. We also do have a schematic image there of Volcanicus with the brand new swords attached here onto the back. And after you remove that initial sleeve, of course we do have the standard Transformers Generation Select box art with the Autobot insignia slap bang in the center, and upon opening this particular sleeve you are witnessed to pure, untold Dinobot glory. And oh my goodness, Takara Tomy, just by taking a look at them here in the clamshell, have done a fantastic job as far as the paintwork is concerned. Already I can see the vast improvements made here to the combiner's feet, as well of course to the hands, as I do believe the hands are very similar to what we saw with Piranacon, and when compared to the original versions which were just static, these are indeed articulated. And of course we have the awesome looking Volcanicus blades. I am so excited to actually crack these particular figures open, so without further ado I'm going to smash them out of their plastic clamshells and take a look and show you guys how awesome these new repaints actually are. So here we have the Dinobots opened up and out of their packaging, and all 5 of them looking absolutely incredible. I would even go as far as saying that this is by far one of my favourite Generation Select releases that Takara Tomy have ever done. Honestly, this is classic Takara Tomy. They have taken a rather mediocre Hasbro release, slapped a ton of additional paint application onto it, as well as included some new accessories, and has honestly turned what was a 5 into almost a 10. I am so impressed with how the paint decos for each and every one of these figures did in fact turn out. Of course we shall begin firstly by taking a look at the king of the Dinobots, Grimlock, and already you can see that amazing metallic silver that Grimlock has had applied to him, and the same can also be said for pretty much the rest of the entire team. Something which is in fact different here with this particular Grimlock is we now have this entire amalgamation of weapons attached to his back. Now this is indeed removable, although I really do love how this looks. This is in fact 4 accessories that do attach into one accumulative piece, and I think it looks awesome. You can also see that despite Grimlock being a Power of the Primes release, these do in fact have blast effect attachments, so you could of course add any of the War for Cybertron blast effects to this, just in keeping with what we now have with some of the modern lines. I also love the gold that we have got painted underneath this transparent piece of plastic, and that is something that you shall see throughout all of the Dinobots, and overall it just looks so awesome. Of course this figure has now become dethroned by the superior Leader Class Studio Series 86 figure, but for a Voyager that was a triple changer effectively, I think Hasbro did a fantastic job with this original mold. And something which I do actually prefer is that this Grimlock does in fact have 2 rows of teeth, and I think it looks really awesome. As far as articulation is concerned, the head can look up and down, and the jaw can of course chomp. We do get ball joints here at the tiny little T-Rex arms, which too have also been detailed really well, and of course we get the ratchet joints here at the top of the leg, and you can also utilize these knee joints in order to compress that range of motion, and we can also use the knee joints here of the actual robot mode in order to ratchet the tail forwards and backwards. So overall a really awesome looking repaint. As we turn our attention here to Slug, I am aware that this character is of course called something else in G1, however considering that his original name is in fact an insult here in the UK, I shall be referring to him throughout the rest of this review as Slug, but rest assured I do know what his original name is indeed. And you can see that much like Grimlock, he has had this amazing metallic silver applied pretty much throughout the entire body, including the arms. I also do like that they have gotten rid of that almost latching effect with the jaw, so you are able to open and close this with ease and no longer need to actually fight with this joint that would continuously want to spring down or spring up. And I think here for the sculpt work it too has turned out really well. I love the utilization of transparent clear plastic across the board for all of these Dinobots, I think it adds depth to them, and I really love the sculpt work that we have underneath. And of course here for the tail, you can see that transparent plastic which has encased a metallic silver piece, and overall it just looks really awesome. Turning our attention here to Sludge, I also love the sculpt work on these. Considering that these are Power of the Primes figures, I'm thoroughly impressed with how awesome these figures did in fact turn out. And you can see of course that we do get a very nice metallic wash, and the sculpting and detailing there really does look fantastic, and all of the paint apps have turned out incredibly crisp and precise with minimal paint bleeds on this figure, which I was actually quite surprised to see. Of course the jaw here can open and close, and you can once again see that transparent plastic which is actually concealing a piece of plastic that has been painted in a fantastic looking metallic gold. And then we'll take a look here at Snarl. You can see Snarl too does have some really nice looking sculpt work, especially here for this region, and much like the rest of the Dinobots, we have that transparent plastic applied over the top of gold paint, and I just think that overall it looks really awesome. And then finally we'll take a look here at Swoop, who was originally one of my favourite Dinobots. You can see that he too has turned out really well, although when we bring out the original set of Dinobots for a comparison, you shall see that in comparison to his original release, there really isn't all that much different here besides the silver paint that we get here on the top. Unfortunately, Takara Tomy did decide to leave the wings just merely cast out of grey plastic, although I believe that is probably down to minimise paint scratching, as of course there are various different hinge joints that would potentially cause some damage to the paint, so I am able to excuse that. And you can see here for the actual head design, of course we have a much more anime or toon accurate motif with all of these Dinobots than compared to their original releases, which were more toy accurate as far as the colorization was concerned. And overall, for a set of repaints, I think that each and every one of these Dinobots have turned out exceptionally well. I will be able to showcase comparisons across this entire review between the original set of Power of the Prime Dinobots and these Dinobots. The only case where I shan't be able to show a comparison will be in the combined mode, as I have unfortunately completely misplaced the original combiner feet for Volcanicus as well as the original combiner hands. And here for a Dinobot comparison, we have on the left the new Generation Select release, and then of course here on the right the individually released original Power of the Primes figures. And as mentioned earlier on in the review, they really only differ as far as their colorization is concerned. Of course, with the new Volcanicus box set we do get included a variety of additional accessories, but as far as the base molds are concerned, they are pretty much identical, and I really think that it will come down to personal preference as far as which is the better. I personally do prefer the more anime / toon accurate colour scheme that we get here with the new Volcanicus set. I just think the colours are so vibrant, are a lot more impressive to actually behold, and really help to excel some of the details that may have been missed with the original rather drab looking colour scheme. Of course, I do believe Hasbro were perhaps aiming for original toy accuracy with these figures. These of course did also have stickers which have now been completely abolished by the new Gen Select release, which I am all for, as I hate stickers and really thought that the Power of the Primes line really went for a rough stage with the stickers, so I'm glad to certainly see them gone. But just as far as a personal preference is concerned, I love the metallic golds and silvers that we get here on these versions when in comparison to these. These just look really washed out, really bland and boring to me, and after this review these will certainly be thrown into a storage bin and probably will never see the light of day again. But be sure to let me know down in the comment section below by taking a look here at this comparison, which of the colour schemes do you guys prefer? The more toon accurate decos, or of course the more toy accurate decos? Now, turning to transformation into robot mode, of course we shall begin with the king of the Dinobots, Grimlock. So of course you're going to want to close the head here, take this section and fold this here all the way back until it does clip into place. We can then take these two halves and actually detach those and angle these here out to the sides. That will then allow you to take this entire region and just split this here and shift this up until it does clip nice and securely there into place. We can then take the legs, split this entire region, take this section, fold that to the back, and of course repeat the same process, angle these wing pieces accordingly, and then just flip out Grimlock's hands like so. And there is the king of the Dinobots fully transformed up there into his robot mode. So we'll set him there off to the side. We can then bring in Swoop. Now to convert him, you're going to want to take this hinge joint, collapse this down, and then take the beak of the pterodactyl mode and just snap that there into place. We can then take these sections, bring these to the back, clip those in, and repeat the same process. Take this region, detach that, bring this down, fold out the toes, and then just split the legs. Come here to this section, disengage that, fold out the wrists, rotate at the bicep, and repeat the same process. And the wings are really up to your own interpretation. You can angle these down or flare them out. I personally like to have them something along the lines of this. So there's Swoop, fully transformed. We can then bring in Snarl. He's a little more complex as far as the conversion is concerned, so you'll want to take these, angle these here to the back, take this section, split this, and then that will allow you to take this here and fold all of this forwards, and of course repeat the same process. You'll then want to collapse that in, snap that into place, of course come here to this side and repeat the same process. We can then turn our attention here to the arms, pull those down, take this section, lift this up and split this, come into this cavity, pull out the head, and then just compress this down, pulling the shoulders forwards, and then finally flipping out the wrists here on either side. And here with the little dino arms, you can just compress them along the sides to your own personal desire. We can then turn our attention here to Sludge, who is also quite complex. Rotate the head around and just detach this section like so. You'll then want to take this, disengage that, which will then allow you to split this entire region, which is held in very securely. So we can just fold that there out to the side. Turn your attention here to the underside, detach these pieces whilst rotating them up, and then bring these legs down, hinge those out to the sides, and then of course rotate this here out to the side as well, fold down and repeat the same process. Rotate here at the waist. We can then come here to the back and flip out these heel spurs, so just hinge these entire sections down until they of course clip nice and securely into place, and then we can just bring this down, rest that along the side, repeat the same process here for this side. Come here and rotate the dino legs up. We can then bring these around, flip out the wrists, rotate here at the bicep, and repeat the same process. And that is Sludge, fully transformed up there into robot mode. And then of course finally we have Slug, who's also reasonably complex. So bring these legs here out to the sides, bring this up, detach this entire region, and of course angle this here out to the side. We can then split this, bring this down, and repeat the same process. And much like Sludge, you will want to take these heel spurs and just bring these all the way down until they click into place. Repeat the same process, pull this entire region here down, rotate the tail, and we do in fact have a groove that will lock into place. So just to demonstrate that, you can see how this will just sit over the top. Take the legs, according these back like so. We can then take this section, collapse this down, and of course flip out the wrists. And here with these horns, you can either flare them out to the sides or compress them so that they are not visible. I personally always prefer to leave them out to the side. And there we have our full 5 set of Dinobots fully transformed into their robot modes. Taking a closer look here at each of the Dinobots in their robot modes, much like when we had them in their dino modes, the figures do look really visually appealing due to the amazing, very vibrant colour scheme that Takara Tomy have now slapped on these molds. To begin with, we shall take a look here at Deluxe Class Swoop. I think he is probably my favourite looking Dinobot as far as robot mode is concerned. I really love how this figure turned out, and as far as the Studio Series representation is concerned, if they were able to accomplish this much with this Deluxe figure 3 or 4 years ago, I just cannot imagine what they could do now in 2021. You can see that as far as the head sculpt is concerned, it looks terrific. Of course, we now have a glossy red applied here for the crest and the main helmet, and I think the silver and the blue there for the face too has turned out exceptionally well. As we turn our attention here down to the torso region, you can see how this has been completely cast out of a very nice shade of blue, and we too have got some nice red paint apps as well as some black sculpt work here at the top. The sculpting and detailing here for the wings too is incredibly impressive. You can see all of this venting detailing, all of the mechanical surface detail. It really does look fantastic. And then as we take a look here towards the forearms, we have got a nice gunmetal, and then finally here down to the legs, you can see how this too does look really nice due to the metallic silver finish and some of the red highlights. He of course comes with one accessory, that being this transparent clear sword, and I think the detail on this too for a transparent piece has turned out exceptionally well. As far as articulation is concerned, we get a ball joint here at the head which can rotate left to right and look up and down. Full rotation here at the arms due to ball joints. These can of course hinge out to the sides. Full rotation at the bicep, 90-degree bend here at the elbow. We do get a rotation here at the waist, although it can become locked into place due to this nose section. The legs are on ball joints, so can kick forwards that far, as well as back to that far, of course, out to the sides. Full rotation at the thigh, 90-degree bend there at the knee. So overall, a really, really solid looking deluxe class. Turning our attention here to Snarl, I think he is my least favourite out of all of the Dinobots here in robot mode. I'm just not a massive fan of how he looks, but the detail is rather nice. You can see for the head sculpt in particular, that has turned out really, really well, and of course we've got some nice paintwork there. As we turn our attention here to the torso, considering I do believe these figures originally came with prime armor, you can actually attach something here to the center of his torso, and the same can also be said here for both Sludge and of course Slug over there. You can see that instead of stickers, we now have some nice tampo detailing, which still gives you the impression of an almost sticker-like detail, but whilst at the same time is certainly a lot more durable as far as the longevity is concerned. And you can see how we've got some nice mechanical sculpt work here for these sections. I think the arms have turned out quite nice with the metallic silver here for the forearms, and the legs, to be honest, I'm just not a massive fan of how the interior of these look at all. To me, there's just something ever so slightly off with it. I think from a side perspective they look okay, but from the back and from the inside they are not all that great at all. He also does come with a transparent clear sword. It is actually different as far as moulding is concerned when compared to Swoop, and I think that too has turned out really well. Articulation is as follows. We have a ball joint at the head, we do get ball joints here at the arms, and due to transformation you can also utilise this hinge joint, although I personally wouldn't recommend doing so. They can hinge out to the sides, although you can see the rather skinny nature of this shoulder region due to how he actually does transform. I think that out of all of the Dinobots, Snull here is definitely the one that deserves an update the most. We of course do get a full rotation here at the bicep on a transparent clear piece of plastic, so I'm quite unsure as to how this will hold up over time. 90-degree bend here at the elbow. We do get a rotation here at the waist. The legs can kick forwards that far, back to that far, as well as out to the sides. Full rotation at the thigh. 90-degree bend here at the knee. So overall, whilst not my favourite deluxe, he certainly isn't a bad figure by any stretch of the imagination. As we turn our attention here to Sludge, you can see that the head sculpt really does look fantastic. I think he may have one of the best head sculpts out of this entire Dinobot lineup. I love the paintwork as well as the sculpt work there, and you can see that as far as the detailing to the torso and the arms is concerned, this all looks really well done. I do love these rather Grimlock-esque wings that he has got hanging off the back. And then as we take a look here towards the legs, I think these two have turned out really well, a lot better when in comparison to what we had with Snarl, and the metallic silver definitely does look really awesome. As we flip here to the back, of course we do have the dino head just slapped here, but I do like how they did design a slot so that it can actually rest and isn't jiggling around anywhere. For articulation, it is the same as all of the other Dinobots, so we do get a ball joint here at the head, ball joints at the arms, bicep rotation, hinge joint at the elbow, waist rotation, ball joints at the legs, rotation at the thigh, and of course a bend there at the knee. And then finally for the deluxe class, here we have Slug, and you can see that as far as the sculpt work is concerned for this figure too, it has turned out really well. I am a massive fan of the vibrant colour scheme that we now have. Of course, we've got the Autobot insignia slap bang on this chest plate, which is formed out of his lower jaw, and you can see the head sculpt looks really nicely done. And the sculpt work too has turned out exceptionally well, and the articulation is exactly the same as all of the other deluxe figures, and both Sludge and Slug come with the same gun, which too has got some nice sculpt work, although it's just completely cast out of black plastic. And then finally for robot mode, we turn to the king himself, Grimlock, and the detailing on this figure too has turned out so well. This really was a fantastic Voyager in its day, and it still, even to this day, does hold up exceptionally well, even when compared to the Studio Series version, which whilst is of course more accurate, I still think this is a very nice representation of the character and really did come quite close to how he appeared on screen, especially considering that this is actually a combiner figure. You can see we've got a really nice blue there used for the visor, and the sculpt work for the helmet has turned out exceptionally well. Something which I am noticing on this figure when in comparison to the original release is that the chest now becomes detached a whole lot easier. I put that down to maybe the mold degrading, or maybe here on my copy the tolerances are just not up to par. It's not a massive deal breaker, but it definitely can become rather frustrating when posing the figure. But you can see how this entire transparent piece has been applied over the top of a very nice gold metallic paint, and of course we've got that amazing silver here for the arms. These are all of the accessories that I showcased in the Dino mode, however this time split into their individual components. So of course we've got the machine gun split into two pieces on either sides of the arms, and we also do have this rather G1 looking esque style of blaster for Grimlock. I maybe would have liked to have seen them include a sword, although if you are that inclined, you could take one of the Volcanicus swords, although they are incredibly big. And then taking a look here to the legs, you can once again see the very nice looking colour scheme that we have of the blue, red and green, and of course the silver. And as we take a look here towards the back, for the most part it is quite accurate to the animation, despite this back plate which does actually form a part of Volcanicus. And turning to a very quick Dinobot comparison, of course we have our new Gen Select version here on the left and the old Power of the Primes release on the right. And as mentioned in Dino mode, it truly is just the colorization which differs between these releases. Of course, these are more toy accurate as far as their colorization is concerned when in comparison to the more anime/toon accurate color scheme that we now get here on the Gen Select version. I still do prefer the newer version when in comparison. I just think the vibrant color scheme really does amplify the molds, and to me ultimately abolishes the original Power of the Prime release. So turning to transformation into the gestalt, of which is of course Volcanicus, we shall firstly begin with the central torso, that being Grimlock. So to begin with, you're going to want to take the fists here and just compress those into the hollow cavities. Of course, repeat the same process on the opposite side. We can then take the shoulder region and hinge this up until this circular section does effectively wrap around this transparent piece of plastic. Of course, repeat the same process here on the opposite side. You will also notice that we have these slots on the forearms. These are in fact going to peg into these tabs, so you will want to utilize the bicep rotation as well as manipulate the double elbow joint that we have here in order to align that up appropriately. So just snap that there into place securely, and of course come here to this side and repeat the same process. So align this up, snap that in there nice and securely. We can then take this entire section, disengage it, and these two slots shall in fact peg now into these two tabs. So just snap that there. We can then rotate this all the way around, and whilst doing so you're going to want to ensure that you take this plate, hinge this section forward and down, which will allow for a full rotation. Once that's complete, we can take Grimlock's T-Rex head, fold this down and collapse the head along the front of the body. Come here to the top and you're going to want to fold out this section, lift the head up, bring this down, and try your best to align these up appropriately in order to stop the head from actually collapsing and dipping back into that cavity. With that now done, we do have a tab here that will peg into this slot, so clip that into place. And of course repeat the same process. You'll then want to come here to these sections and just ratchet these accordingly and repeat the same process. And this is where some of the new accessories that Takara Tomy included come into play. So you'll want to bring in these sections. Now these can be displayed in two ways, one of which is this configuration and then this configuration. For combined mode, you're going to want to collapse this in, and you will notice how we do have a huge tab that will actually slide into this slot. So just snap that in there like so, and of course come here to this side. To me, this definitely did give me DNA design vibes, so are Takara Tomy trying to beat the third-party companies? It would certainly look that way, and you can see how that just fills in the torso and makes this entire region look a lot more complete when in comparison to the original version. Bringing in swoop, of course you'll want to compress the fists here into the gaps. What we can then do is this tab here will in fact peg into this slot along the side of the torso, so just snap that in there. And of course, repeat the same process. We can then take this head, bring this up, and then take this and bring this down, as that will allow for some clearance to actually pull out this ratchet shoulder joint. So bring that down. Once that's done, we can then take this entire assembly and just collapse that like so. You'll then want to take the wings, straighten those out, and these slots shall in fact peg into these tabs. So bring that over, clip that there into place, and of course repeat the same process here. Come here to this side, compress all of that in, bring this section down, and then just rotate the waist slightly so that we now have what will be the elbow joint, and that is when we can bring in the combiner fists, and of course just port this here into place and set that off to the side. Bring in slug and take this section, compress this. We can then take the head, disengage this and set that off to the side, bring out the shoulder ratchet, and these two tabs will in fact slide into some slots here. So just bring this down until it does slide in there, just like so. Of course, come here to the fists, compress those into the hollow cavities, and then what you shall do is rotate here at the bicep, and then these circular ports shall in fact peg into these tabs. So just snap them in there, or they more or less just rest into place. And of course repeat the same process. we can then tab that into place, ensuring that all of this is compressed. Rotate here at the waist, take these, make sure that these are tabbed in and aligned up appropriately. Bring in the second combiner hand and of course slide that in there, and here we have the left arm of Volcanicus fully formed. Here for Snarl, you're going to want to take this back region, disengage that and fold the head into that cavity. Take this ratchet joint here, which would of course become the knee, bring this all the way out and then just compress that along the side like this. You'll then want to rotate at the waist, and effectively I do believe you are going to want to get it transformed back into its original configuration for Dino mode. So just compress that. Perhaps the waist is actually supposed to be left like this, and then bring this around, ensuring that that does slide there into place. Of course, snap all that in, come here to this side, bring these two halves together and snap them there into place. And here for this section, this tab shall in fact peg here into this slot, so rotate at the bicep, collapse the fist into place and snap that there into place. Come here to this side and repeat the same process, rotate at the bicep and of course snap that there into place. And you'll want to bring out the combiner foot, take one of Grimlock's blasters and snap that in, and that almost acts as a heel spur. And then of course we can just reattach this assembly just like so. And then finally that of course leaves us here with Sludge. So for this, bring the arms up and over and compress the torso. You'll then want to bring this panel out, snap that over the top of the head, and then take this entire assembly and bring this down, and that circular port will in fact peg into these tabs, so click that there into place. You'll then want to fold in the wrists and repeat the same process. You're going to want to rotate here at the bicep and bring this forwards, and that will tab there into place, and of course repeat the same process. Rotate at the bicep, ratchet that to the back, and then that will peg there into place. Of course you can close the jaw if you wish. We can then turn our attention here to the back, bring this section out and around, and of course repeat the same process. Collapse the heel spurs and then just fold all of this up, and then once complete, you'll then want to rotate here at the waist, bring that around, and of course compress all of this in, much like you would if you were transforming him back into Dino mode. And then with these we can just bring those around, snap them there into place, and with these we can just set those there off to the side. And then finally we do get ports that will peg into some tabs, so clip that in, and of course repeat the same process, ensure that everything is snapped in accordingly. And then finally bring in the other Grimlock blaster and foot, snap that into place and combine that, and here we have the fifth and final limb fully converted. And as far as combination is concerned, it is simply just a matter of sliding the ratchet joints into their respective places and repeat the same process. Something which is also worth mentioning is that any of the limbs are versatile, so you could have the legs as arms. I'm merely just going off what the instructions do showcase. And of course we can take the arms and just slide these in, and you can see how this is on a spring-loaded mechanism, so that when this goes in, a piece does shoot over the top in order to lock that into place. And then finally come here to this side, and here we have Volcanicus, the Dinobot combiner, looking, at least in my opinion, really well done. I've got to be honest and say that I think Volcanicus is one of the best combiners to come out of that Power of the Primes almost mashup of Combiner Wars lineup. He really is, for the most part, quite a solid combiner and is one of the better ones out there on the market. And of course, with some of the additional accessories and the slew of new paint apps that we get here with this Takara Tomy release, I really think that it helps to amplify his overall visual appeal. Now, as mentioned earlier on in the review, I shall be unable to give you a direct comparison here in combined form with the original set, as I have completely misplaced all of the combiner hands as well as feet. Although rest assured, as you have seen throughout all of the comparisons, it merely is just differences as far as colorization is concerned, and of course a few additional accessories. Taking a closer look here at the details, I really do love how the head sculpt in particular has turned out. It looks like a very heavily armored version of Grimlock's robot mode head design, as you can clearly see design traits such as the blue visor and of course the helmet design, which is very reminiscent. I also like how they've picked the top crest out in a gold metallic paint, as to me this is a very nice homage to when Grimlock does actually acquire the crown and of course is the king of the Dinobots. As we turn our attention here to the torso, you can see that amazing metallic silver. Honestly, the paint apps certainly do help in order to excel the sculpt work, and considering that we now have 2 new attachments to the torso, it really does fill in some of those hollow gaps that were apparent on the original release. Taking a look here towards the arms, of course, considering this is a Power of the Primes combiner, there are some areas which look slightly unsightly, and of course the proportions are not 100% accurate, but those are all things that I can forgive, especially considering how ambitious this was for a primarily deluxe and of course singular Voyager combiner. You can see here for the arms, I really do like the sculpting and detailing, and I think Hasbro and Takara Tomy for that part did do quite a commendable job in distributing some of the Dino pieces and Robot mode pieces, so that overall they did help aid the overall look of the combined mode. For example, I do like how the Triceratops head here of Slug does stick out to the top, and the same can also be said here for the Pterodactyl head of Swoop, and I also like how Sludge's head does also rest here as an almost knee pad. You can also see how the tail of Snarl does also become this almost knee pad armor, and I think it creates for a very barbaric and very aggressive look for the character. You are certainly able to see a variety of sculpt work here for the individual fingers, and even when we turn here to the back of the hands, that sculpt work does continue. Taking a look here down to the lower section of Volcanicus, I love the mix of silver, black and of course gold. I just think the colorization on this figure truly is fantastic. Unfortunately, as we turn to the back of the figure, he is slightly lanky, although as mentioned, I am able to forgive some of the issues that I have as far as proportions are concerned, considering how ambitious this was for a deluxe and Voyager class combiner. As far as articulation is concerned, Volcanicus does have a hinge joint here at the head, which can look left to right. I would have much rather a ball joint, but regardless, it is what it is. We do get ratchet joints here at the shoulders, although I would recommend grasping these 2 sections as they can become easily detached, although do stay held in a lot more securely than compared to the original release. We of course do get a ratchet joint here out to the side. We can utilize the waist joint here for an almost bicep rotation, a double joint here at the elbow due to utilizing both the ball joints here of the hips of the robot mode as well as the knee joint. As far as the hand is concerned, this can rotate left to right, and of course all of the fingers are individually articulated, as so is the thumb. We also do get a full rotation here at the waist. This plate is able to lift up in order to accommodate any range of motion that you may get kicking forward, as well as of course kicking back. He can also do the split. We do also get a knee joint which can bend roughly to 90, and the same can also be said here for this leg. And seeing as we now have the new feet, we of course do get ankle rocker pivots side to side, as well as a ratchet joint which can also pivot forwards and backwards. So overall, as far as articulation is concerned, it certainly is better than its original counterpart, and considering how large this figure does become, I think they've done a commendable job. But that isn't it. Volcanicus also comes equipped with a pair of amazing, incredibly large sculpted looking swords. These look awesome and are very reminiscent as far as their design is concerned to the Fall of Cybertron Grimlock sword design, and I really think that Takara Tomy have done such a splendid job. Of course, they have been completely cast out of transparent orange plastic with a very nice gunmetal applied over the top of certain areas in order to pick out some of the sharper details of the sculpt and to really give you the impression of where the metallic structure would be when compared to, of course, I imagine what would be this almost lava-like effect that you would get here from the blade. These look very intimidating, and I'm so glad that they did actually package these in with this figure. My only downside to these is that, much like I mentioned in my Piranacon combiner review, the thumbs simply are just not strong enough to hold any weapons at all. They consistently become detached, and it creates for a very unstable and rather frustrating experience to actually pose. So just to demonstrate that, you are supposed to port this in all the way, and as far as a static pose is concerned, he can definitely pull that off, but as soon as you begin manipulating, you can see how the thumb just wants to continuously disengage, and I really do think that is a shame. But as far as the display is concerned, if you have both of these pegged on and you are able to get the figure into a dynamic pose with these, he's going to look exceptional. Or you can turn your attention to the back, and this is how all of the publicity shots really do show Volcanicus. You can actually take these tabs that we have here and peg them into the back. So just snap that there, and of course come here to this side and repeat the same process. And there we have both of the 2 gigantic swords here on the back. and I just think that looks so cool. Definitely a very imposing looking combiner, and to be honest with you, I'm just so glad that I did add this figure here to the collection. And so, some final thoughts. Overall, as mentioned at the beginning of this review, this is probably one of my favourite Generation Select releases of all time. I'm thoroughly impressed with how well done this set has actually turned out. Initially, I was slightly underwhelmed that Takara Tomy were simply just going to be repackaging some of the Power of the Primes figures, as for the most part, those figures are rather lackluster, but I always thought that the 5 Dinobots we got out of that line was some of the best, and when I saw what they'd done as far as the colorization was concerned, I knew that I had to pick them up. I was also a massive fan of the new accessories that they actually packaged in with the figures. Of course, I maybe would have liked them to have gone a step further and actually made changes to the figures themselves, whether that be new components to help aid articulation or just some aesthetic changes just to neaten up certain areas. But overall, as a gift set, I think it's amazing, and despite the Studio Series Grimlock and eventual releases more than likely dethroning some of these figures, I think that as an overall package, these are a set of very solid releases. They look good in Dino mode, good in Robot mode, and I really love how they look here in Combine mode. They are all very fun figures, and they are all painted exceptionally well, and when put alongside their original counterparts, they absolutely blow them out of the water. As far as a recommendation is concerned, I really do believe that it will be up to your own personal preference. Of course, these are effectively just repaints, so aren't going to appeal to everyone, and considering the Studio Series is likely to give us a full set of Leader and even Voyager class Dinobots, it's probable that many will just hold out for them. But I do think that this is a good figure, and if you are able to track this down and have been a fan of the Power of the Prime Dinobots, I really do not think that you will regret your purchase at all. I really hope that you enjoyed this review. If you did, please do let me know down in the comment section below. Also, be sure to let me know on what you think of the figures themselves, and of course, Volcanicus as a combiner in general. I thank you all for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.